The echo of elephant hooves on snow still resonates in the mountains. The fields where Rome lost its soul remain stained with history and blood. His name, centuries later, was enough to make children, senators, and soldiers tremble, even after his death. Hannibal Barca was not just a general. He was the shadow that darkened the empire's most glorious days. A boy swearing eternal hatred, a strategist turning animals into weapons, an enemy Rome could never forget. Today you will learn 25 chilling facts that made Hannibal the greatest enemy Rome ever faced. And perhaps, by the end, you'll understand why even the gods seemed to fear him. Hannibal Barca was born with war in his blood. Son of the great Hamilcar, he was raised to destroy Rome. At the age of 9, his father made him swear an oath of vengeance. By 25, he was commanding armies. At 27, he crossed the Alps with elephants. And for more than a decade, he held the greatest power in the world on the brink of collapse. It wasn't just his violence that terrified, it was his intelligence. He planned battles as if composing symphonies of death. And though he never set foot in Rome, his shadow haunted it for generations. Now, our journey begins. 1. He received his brother's head as a warning. Hannibal didn't just lose a battle, he lost a blood bond. His brother Hasdrubal Barca tried to cross the Alps to reinforce him in Italy. But he was ambushed, defeated, and beheaded. The Romans, aware of their deep connection, did the unthinkable, they sent his head as a message. One night, while Hannibal was dining in his tent, something fell into the camp. As he approached, he knew instantly, the lifeless face of his brother, still covered in dried blood. Rome didn't just want to win, it wanted to break his soul. 2. He turned 2,000 oxen into living torches. Trapped in a narrow valley by the Romans, with no food and no escape, Hannibal devised a macabre tactic. He ordered logs to be tied to the horns of 2,000 oxen and set them on fire. In the ensuing chaos, the animals charged like infernal beasts toward the Roman lines, sowing panic. Amid the confusion, his army escaped. The night was lit with fire, bellows, screams, and death. Rome learned that with Hannibal, even desperation was not the same as surrender. 3. He used poisonous snakes as biological weapons. Long before the concept of biological warfare existed, Hannibal practiced it with precision. During naval battles, he hurled jars full of venomous snakes onto enemy decks. The creatures slithered between the sailors' feet, biting, causing panic and disorder. It was more than a tactic, it was psychological terror in its purest form. Even the seas became accomplices to his legend. 4. He turned elephants into war tanks. Hannibal didn't just cross the Alps with them, he transformed them into living machines of destruction. Beasts over 13 feet tall, covered in armor and sharp spikes, advanced on the Roman legions like an unstoppable wave. Many Roman soldiers preferred to flee rather than face those colossi. The roar of the elephants, combined with the Carthaginian war cries, created one of the most terrifying scenes of the ancient world. 5. His father crucified thousands, and he witnessed it. From childhood, Hannibal saw horrors. During the mercenary war, his father Hamilcar crucified thousands of rebel soldiers as punishment. The African hills became forests of impaled bodies. Hannibal saw it all. To him, war was not glorious, it was cruel, merciless, necessary. He grew up knowing that fear was as powerful as the sword. Rome didn't yet know it, but an enemy forged in hatred was coming. 6. He lost his right eye, and still commanded from above. Hannibal didn't need full vision to keep spreading terror. During a campaign, an infection or wound left him blind in one eye. But far from weakening him, it made him even more feared. Mounted on a war elephant, his new watchtower, he commanded battles with a single burning eye, marked by a brutal scar. From above, he saw more clearly than anyone else, he saw fear. 7. He terrorized Rome for over 10 years. It wasn't a fleeting campaign. It was a long, dark breath over the empire. For more than a decade, Hannibal roamed Italy like a ghost impossible to catch. Every one of his victories was a moral defeat for Rome. Senators trembled. Families prayed. It was said that Roman children did not fear the wolf, they feared Hannibal. His very presence halted markets, altered routes, and paralyzed armies. 8. He became a mercenary for Rome's enemy kings. When he was defeated at Zama, he didn't vanish. He became even more dangerous. He became the military advisor to Antiochus III, king of the Seleucid Empire. From Asia Minor, he prepared new fronts against Rome. He was like a wandering spirit of war, offering his strategic mind to anyone willing to fight the giant. He was in exile, but never defeated. 9. He was trained by a Spartan master. He didn't learn from just any tutor. His mentor was Sosilos of Sparta, a master of the art of war. With him, Hannibal absorbed Spartan discipline, the cult of valor, and Greek strategy. He learned history, philosophy, tactics, and revenge. He was forged in the Hellenic fire, hardened by the history of Alexander the Great, and shaped to be a living weapon. 10. He walked from Carthage to the Strait of Gibraltar. Before mastering battlefields, he had already proven his mettle. Lacking ships, Hannibal and his army marched from Carthage, in North Africa, to the Strait of Gibraltar. They crossed deserts, mountains, and hostile tribes. It was a march few would have survived. But for him, the journey was part of the oath, to destroy Rome, step by step. 11. He swore to use fire and iron against Rome. It wasn't a mere promise. It was a blood oath. As a child, Hannibal placed his hand on an altar while his father, Hamilcar, looked on sternly. "Do you swear to hate Rome?" he asked. "I swear," he replied firmly. From that moment, his fate was sealed. Every battle, every march, every death, was the consequence of that ritual hatred. He wasn't just a general. He was an instrument of vengeance. 12. He married a Spanish princess for political convenience. Love had no place in his life. His marriage to Humils, daughter of the king of Castulo, was part of a pact. She was young, beautiful, and cultured. He was cold, calculating, and distant. His passion was not affection, but war. It is said that a son was born of this union. But the fate of Hannibal's family was uncertain, political alliances broke like rusted swords. And the price was betrayal. 13. His brother crucified magistrates in Gades. Vengeance was no stranger to the Barca family. When Mago, Hannibal's brother, returned to Gades and found the gates closed in betrayal, he didn't hesitate. Upon entering the city, he captured the magistrates responsible, and crucified them. The message was clear: no one betrays the Barcas and goes unpunished. The faithless were not granted a swift death, but a public one. 14. He was seen as the reincarnation of his father. The soldiers didn't see a young man in Hannibal. They saw the return of the lion. Hamilcar had died in Hispania, but his son was chosen by acclamation. He is just like his father, they said. He had his fire, his discipline, his steel gaze. At 25, he was already leading armies as if he had been born for war. He was not merely the heir to a legacy. He was its living continuation. 15. He crossed the Alps with burning vinegar. When the mountains seemed impassable, Hannibal didn't yield. He ordered the rocks to be set on fire, and then doused them with boiling vinegar. The cracks widened, and his men split them with iron wedges. Thus, an army crossed where no one thought it possible. They lost elephants, men, provisions, but won a place in history. Rome trembled upon learning the monster had crossed the Alps. 16. He planned the perfect massacre at the Battle of Cannae. Almost 80,000 Romans died in a single day. It was a dance of death orchestrated by Hannibal. At Cannae, he encircled the enemy like a serpent. He feigned weakness in the center, and when Rome fell into the trap, the Carthaginian army closed the vice. Screams. Blood. Despair. Those who did not die by the sword drowned beneath the bodies of their comrades. 17. He plundered cities and stole their harvests as punishment. The Vacian cities of Helmantica and Arbacala, modern Salamanca and Toro, knew Hannibal's fury. He not only killed their defenders, he destroyed their food reserves, knowing it would condemn thousands more. These were not simple attacks. They were warnings: Rome cannot protect you. 18. His brother-in-law was killed by the slave of a crucified king. Hasdrubal the Fair, Hannibal's brother-in-law, brutally executed an Iberian king named Tago. But the monarch's slave vowed to avenge him. One night, while all slept, he slipped through the shadows, and killed the Carthaginian general. Not even royalty was safe in Hannibal's time. Everyone had enemies, even the dead. 19. He besieged and destroyed Saguntum, the shot that ignited the war. For 8 months, Saguntum resisted. Until Hannibal crushed it. Neither women nor children were spared. Its conquest was the war cry that unleashed the Second Punic War. 20. He was considered the third greatest general in history, by his enemy. After his defeat, Scipio Africanus, his great rival, met with him. He asked, "Who was the greatest general of all time?" Hannibal replied, "Alexander the Great. Then Pyrrhus. And then me." Even his adversary admired him. Because even in defeat, Hannibal was great. 21. He gave his name to the most famous psychopath in cinema. Hannibal Lecter, the brilliant monster of modern cinema, was not named by chance. Thomas Harris, his creator, named him inspired by the Carthaginian general: cold, calculating, unbeatable, feared. Hannibal Barca did not devour human flesh, but he devoured entire armies. His legacy was so terrifying, that cinema turned him into a dark legend. 22. He personified the eternal fear of the Romans. For generations, Roman mothers did not say, "The bogeyman is coming for you," they said, "Hannibal is at the gates." Even dead, his shadow terrified. He was the ghost in Rome's collective mind. The nightmare that taught an entire empire to fear the unthinkable. 23. He was the protagonist of a prophecy of revenge. The Greeks subdued by Rome awaited a liberator. And rumors began: a king from Asia would rise against the Romans. He lived in exile. He was brilliant. He had sworn eternal hatred. That man was Hannibal. Although African, his presence in Asian lands made him the ideal candidate to fulfill the prophecy. His legend became mystical. 24. He took his own life with poison hidden in his ring. Hunted. Betrayed. Cornered. Before being handed over to Rome, Hannibal chose his end. He took off his ring. He bit it. Inside, it held the poison he had prepared years earlier, in case that day ever came. He died alone, but free. He preferred death over seeing Rome triumph over his body. 25. He hid even after death. On his epitaph it reads, "Here hides Hannibal." Not rests. Not sleeps. Hides. Even in death, he remained Rome's #1 enemy. So much so that his tomb was forgotten, looted, and even today, no one knows for sure where he lies. Hannibal does not rest. He watches. Silently. Waiting for his moment, as always. Hannibal not only challenged Rome with his sword, but with his mind. He was a man who walked among frozen mountains, who turned animals into weapons, who swore eternal hatred and stood firm even when all was lost. He was so feared, his shadow continued to terrify generations of Romans long after his death. And though his body lies hidden by history, his name was never buried. If these stories impressed you, imagine how many secrets the past still holds, and how many more Hannibals have been silenced by the victors. If you want to discover them, subscribe, leave your comment, and share this video with someone who still believes history is boring.